Hey, everybody. I'm Regina Bryan, and welcome to the Women of Empowered Living. Okay, the tables have turned yet again. Last time I had Paul, Holly, and Andy take over the show, and today I have my friend and fellow Empowered Living ambassador, Carrie Beers. Okay, Carrie, take it away.
Yes. Now, a lot of you, don't worry, I'm not being interviewed again. We have a very special guest today. We have our very own Regina Bryan. Regina has Regina has graciously offered to let us in on some of her life. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary for Regina, and we thought she's been interviewing so many inspiring women in an effort to help us all soar. I think today it's about time we hear a little bit of the insights of her journey. Regina, are you ready?
I don't know, Carrie. I'm going to say yes to you. I think I'm ready. So yes, let's go.
Oh, this is going to be fun, Regina. Just relax. You're on the other side of the table now. I think a lot of people are really curious to get to know you. Regina, the child, the teen, and the woman you've become today. So let us get some highlights from your life.
Oh my gosh, Carrie, thank you for suggesting that we do this. I have interviewed a lot of wonderful, empowered women over the last year. And Carrie, in our interview, you said something and we started thinking about this. So thank you. Okay, Regina, did you say the child, the teen, and the woman?
Absolutely.
Oh my
But we
God.
only have 30 minutes.
Okay, thanks for the reminder. I'm going to keep that in mind. So Carrie, this is a pleasure. I grew up pretty normally, I think. I had a mom and a dad and two sisters. I'm the middle child. My dad was 30-year military guy. He was in the Navy. And I was actually born in Annapolis, Maryland at the Naval Hospital. And we lived just a typical family life. My mom was largely a stay-at-home mom while we were small. And as we got older, my mom did venture out and work. But it was interesting being in a military family. We lived a large part of the time on the East Coast in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, Virginia. And then when I was 13 years old, we made a big move. We moved to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. That's right. We lived overseas on a military base in Guantanamo Bay. The Dow doesn't even have military families. So we spent about 2.5 years there, and it was a really fun time. It was a safe place. It was a military base, so military families only. And I really loved the experience. And I have to say, so did my sisters. So we had to travel a little bit because our dad was military, and it's easy for us to kind of adjust and adapt to other people, and we enjoy the lifestyle. So coming back to the United States when I was about 15 years old.
That must have been a transition to come back from being on a military base in really a foreign country and a challenging country at best. And to know that you had the support of your family must have been real empowering for you to be able to do that. And I can imagine the Scott girls, using your maiden name, were a force to be worthy of.
I love how you phrase that.
I think I know why your mom went to work after a while.
Come on, Carrie.
All right, I'll take that back. So now let's fast forward a little bit. You're in your teen years, you're in your young adult. You started growing up, and I think there was a book that influenced you very early on.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, once I was out of high school, and in high school, personal growth just didn't hit me really, and neither in college. I think it was really a little bit into my early 20s. And I pulled it off my bookshelf.
Nice.
So this is the original first personal growth book that I owned. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. I don't have the cover anymore. The cover ripped, and so it's gone. And on the inside, oh, this is great. On the inside, it has my name, Regina R. Scott, 11/12/97.
Wow.
11, 12.
Now, come on, you really wrote your name in the book so your sisters didn't take it, right?
I still write my name and date in books. But this was a book that really started the whole personal growth journey for me. And so this is a very special book. And I'm so glad when I knew you and I were going to talk today, I just had to pull this book off the shelf.
Nice. Yours is in better shape than Paul's Think and Grow Rich.
It is. Oh, his is falling apart. Mine is still pretty much intact. And so, yeah, I picked up that book and I was actually taking my first job in healthcare. And healthcare was not a field I saw myself in. And yet that's where I landed. And then kind of came across this book.
How did that influence not only working in the healthcare field, but you started doing some different challenging things with friends around running, I believe it was.
Yeah. So I did. And again, I never saw myself as an athlete. I did not play sports as a youngster. And I met a couple of friends at work and different places. And I started doing 5K runs and then 10K runs and 15K. As a matter of fact, Jacksonville, Florida, I believe it's the second or maybe the third largest 15K in the country, called the Gate River Run. And it was over a bridge or two. And that was pretty tough. But I found myself enjoying that experience of pushing myself with friends. So I became somewhat of a runner.
Wait a minute. I'm exhausted listening to you. And you enjoyed running? Was it the friendship or the burn?
Once upon a time, I actually enjoyed running. And I think I got into it. I mean, truth be told, I got into it for the social aspect. And then something just happened, and being there with others and making it fun, that's just part of my personality. I can do almost anything if I can do it with other people and make it fun.
Well, I think you proved that in 2002. Talk to us about that run.
Oh my gosh. So I ran the Adidas Dublin Marathon in Ireland. And I remember I was 28 years old and it was 2002. So we're talking a year after 9/11. And I had wanted to do something before 9/11. And I was determined, like yourself, Carrie, we talked about you going on a road trip. Well, pre 9/11, I had an idea that maybe I would go on a road trip. And then 9/11 happened, and friends and family did not want to see me traveling by myself as a 27-year-old. And so in 2002, I received one of those little postcards in the mail, and it said Team in Training, Joints in Motion, Arthritis Foundation. And my mom has arthritis. And so I decided this would be a great adventure because I could do it with other people. And I never run a marathon. I had never done anything like that, but it was in Ireland and we were going to raise money. And again, if I can do it with other people and have a great time with it, then I can usually be all in. So it was a wonderful experience. Carrie, I got on that plane in Jacksonville by myself, went to Miami, met two girls I had never met before. And then we made the trip together to London and then to Dublin. And I had the time of my life. I mean, I really had the most extraordinary time.
And you when we were preparing a little bit, you talked a little bit about how you really kind of found yourself and overcame some challenges with this.
Yeah.
So talk about that just a little bit, because you had the book, you started on personal development, and deciding to do a marathon from a postcard, that's a first for me. You know, what did you have to overcome to do that? Not just the plane ride, but the marathon itself.
The marathon, of course, as you can imagine, 26.2 miles. That's pretty demanding all by itself. And then we were raising money. I believe our total was $4,200 that we each were raising. And that would take care of our donation as well as our travel expenses. I don't think of myself as the greatest fundraiser, but you tell people what you're doing and, you know, people sort of get behind that. When you push yourself, people really get behind that. And so that's really what I found with the marathon. And, you know, the physicalness of it was quite a bit challenging. There was a moment in Ireland, I thought, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And here's a funny story from Ireland. I don't even think I shared this with you the first time, Carrie. So the night before, we're sitting in our hotel and our coaches are telling us, okay, there's going to be restrooms along the route, but the lines could be long at the porta potties. So sometimes people find a tree, they find a place to go outside. And I was just like, I would never go to the bathroom outside. Well, at mile 4, the restroom line was so long. And then there were a group of Canadian girls, and I could see them going like where there were some trees and a little wall. And I said, do you guys mind if I come with you? And outside I went because the lines were too long and the nervous energy and all the water. So I did something I thought I wouldn't do. And when you're on the marathon route, Carrie, you do what you have to do.
And that is stretching yourself.
For me, that was huge.
That was really huge. The plane ride was nothing after that, right?
That's nothing.
So I'm going to fast forward to when Cupid struck its arrow with you, Regina. This was a night you didn't want to go out, but you were out with a friend, and she pushed you to go dancing as you usually did. Talk a little bit about this friend and how she always had you go dancing, and how did Cupid strike that night?
Oh my gosh, you don't have to fast forward too far because this was just 2003. So
Oh, that's true.
a full year after the marathon, I was out with a great girlfriend of mine named Hadiza. And just like her name, you know, she was splashy and fun. And two single gals in our 20s, we would go out at night and just have a great time, socializing and dancing. And I just remember having a great girlfriend and having a great time with her in that time of my life. And one night, I promise you, Carrie, I had no desire to go out. I was working at this point at the Mental Health Resource Center. And I was the manager. I was all in, loved our patients, loved our staff. And this particular Friday night, I was exhausted. And my friend Hadiza was leaving town the next day. And she goes, you have to come out. And boy, am I glad that I did. Because that night in April of 2003, I met my husband, Roger Bryan, that night. So it was very special.
And it was even more special because he wasn't local to the area, was he?
He wasn't. He was only in Jacksonville for a little while. The tech market in Atlanta had softened. And so he was at a startup job in Jacksonville, didn't really know how long he would be there, renting a condo from a friend. And he was out one night to mingle as well. And just like you said, something happened with Cupid's arrow, and we found each other that night, and pretty much been together since that night.
That's awesome. And you had a long distance relationship though for a while, right? You remained at home?
We dated locally. He was in Jacksonville after we met about a year and a half longer. And then came the time where the startup company went out of business. And so he was wanting to get back to Atlanta because this is where his son lived. And yet I'm in Jacksonville, and we were having a great relationship. I mean, we were a year and a half in. I was feeling great about it. And he managed to get a job here in Atlanta. And so for the next year and a half, we did long distance.
Nice. Yeah. And that I think is challenging too. And that's a testament of what you have going on.
Yeah.
And then you guys made the decision for you to join him in Atlanta.
So, yeah.
But something creative happened there that you weren't expecting, huh?
It was really interesting because, Carrie, I'm a fairly traditional person. So I see myself kind of like my parents, that I would get married before I am living with someone or living, long term with a person. And I just remember in 2006, just thinking to myself, I feel like this could be something. And so I told my parents that I think I'm going to move to Atlanta. We've been doing long distance for a year and a half, and that it only really strengthened our relationship. And I'll never forget at work one day, because all my coworkers, all my girlfriends, you're going to move and you're not engaged. I'm like, I think it's coming, you guys. I think it's going to work out. I got to go for it. I'd lived in Jacksonville for a while, and I just needed a change. And a fax, yes, this was in the days of fax machines.
Describe what a fax machine is. Some of our viewers may not know.
You know what? I'll post a picture of one on Facebook and do a little write.
Put it in your little thing.
Right. So a fax comes to my job that I still have. It's too bad I didn't pull that to show you guys. I still have this fax, and it says, "Would you please leave your job to live a wonderful life with me?" And the first checkbox said yes. The second checkbox said no. And then in parentheses, Roger writes, "No is not a valid answer." So I'm at my job and I get a fax, and it just brought tears to my eyes. And I knew that I was making the right decision, even though we were not engaged. Little did I know that before I actually made the move, Roger would come to town and propose to me. And when I officially made the move, we were engaged.
Nice. That was a nice surprise. And that's an honor to who you are. And I'm just a little curious. You go to Atlanta, you were in healthcare, Roger was in technology. And in 2008,
I know, right?
You buy Riverside Pizza, or you started Riverside Pizza?
Absolutely. I mean, I came to Atlanta and I was still in a medical profession for a year. I had my own place when I moved here, and Roger and his son lived in their home. And Roger was in high tech, and we were talking about the wedding next year and then what comes next, because he was getting his second master's. He was getting an MBA. And he said, I know I want to start a business. And we got married in 2007. And then in 2008, we were full on in this Riverside Pizza. Roger said, "I know I want to be a business owner." And he was still in high tech and I was still in healthcare. And we got married, and then the very next year had a Riverside Pizza.
Nice. So obviously you didn't run the wellness program.
No.
But you've told us some great things about yourself, but there's a shyness that you had, and you made a decision in 2010 that really changed the trajectory of your life.
Carrie, I was shy as a kid, and that carried over for a little while. And it's interesting when you're on a job like healthcare or some of our friends in corporate America, and sometimes that's the right path, and other times you're like, no. And I knew that I had to overcome, maybe it was some of the residual shyness, but I just knew that I wanted to get into speaking. I wanted to get into coaching. And so in 2010, I joined Toastmasters. And that probably was one of the best decisions of my life, because I was like, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to shake off any of the residual shyness that's left, and I'm going to really hone my speaking skills. And it was a great club. When you find a great Toastmasters club, oh my gosh, it was awesome.
And that led you into another career, leaving healthcare. And
it did. I went into real estate because I didn't make the leap from healthcare to speaking, but I did join Keller Williams right before I went into Toastmasters, actually. And Keller Williams the culture is so similar to what we have here in Empowered Living and our friends at the John Maxwell team. I mean, the cultures are so similar. And I didn't love real estate. It was good for a while, but I enjoy the company very much. And so Keller Williams is just that, go and fulfill your dreams and go soar and whatever. It didn't even have to be real estate. It's just got that culture where they push you to be the best you. And so for me, joining Toastmasters was just a fit to that. I was like, I've got to do this. So
that's awesome. So when you really talked about their culture, and that formed you in stepping out into Toastmasters and into Keller Williams, had you preparing and getting ready for another challenge that you were going to face in your life? When we were talking, you talked about how you really went the distance with other people, and something happened when you were about 38 years old, and you found yourself sitting in a waiting room as the only adult with all children, and you were as happy as them to be sitting there waiting with anticipation. What was that for?
Oh my gosh, Carrie. So like I said, Keller Williams is this place. They want you to pursue your dreams and become your best. Well, one of my lifelong dreams, in addition to just honing my speaking and eventually taking that direction, I decided that I wanted to do one of those lifelong dreams. And I always wanted to play the piano. So you're right, I was 38 years old, and friends of ours from church actually had a piano studio 5 minutes from where we live. They still have it. It's 5 minutes from my house. And a year before, as an anniversary present, Roger bought me one of those keyboards. And it sounded just like a piano. It was the real deal, except there was no fancy furniture. And I didn't play it for a year. I didn't play it for about a year. He bought me books to teach myself. But again, for me, it was about that I can do more with other people. I can kind of excel and kind of go all in. And so I went to the piano studio, and there I was, the only adult student waiting to check in with youngsters, young enough, of course, all of them to be my children.
Were they little chairs too?
Yeah, I could barely fit. But just like Toastmasters and other things, it's that going all in, it's that fulfilling a dream. And when I get to do that with other people, that's something for me. That's something.
And, when we were talking, you highlighted how you love to go the distance with others in the piano and Toastmasters. Those are very much individual things. And even as a real estate agent, yes, showing the house. And you talked to me a little bit that you really pushed yourself and that you found that you could do things on your own. And that prepared you for your experience with JMT.
Oh my gosh, the JMT in 2015. I mean, that was like coming home to find the John Maxwell team. And I just decided it was, I turned 40 in 2014. And I just decided, if not now, when? And I had a phone call right after my 40th birthday, but it was 2015 really, because I didn't do anything in the holiday season. And then we had the International Maxwell Certification event in February. And that was my first John Maxwell team live event. And I've only ever missed one. So the John Maxwell team really solidified that I want to be a coach and a speaker, and this is the place to do that. So it's definitely been home and a family. And then I found Empowered Living. So
yeah, you're underselling a little bit about what happened there when you became club level launch. Talk about that a little bit. That's a special moment.
I have to tell the club level launch story just because it's a fun Paul Martinelli story. As many of you know, Paul was the president. He was a founder along with John and president of the John Maxwell team just until the last couple of years. And I'll never forget being in the room the day that Paul Martinelli launched the club level. And my good friend Lynetta and I, who's a member of this community as well, we're sitting in that launch like, Paul is trying to launch something else. And I've got a bad attitude, which I typically don't have. And I'm like, Paul's going to try to sell us something. I'm not buying. There's no way I'm buying in the club level. I'm on the team. I'm in mentorship. Come on, Paul. And then he kept talking and talking. And then finally we realized this deal was too good to be true. And so, of course, we joined club. I mean, that's just how we all know what a great salesperson Paul is. And we had to join club. And then the year after that, with the DISC program, Paul founded that with Deb and Gino. And what an honor to serve as a faculty member for DISC. So when I say the John Maxwell team has made a difference in my life, it has made a difference in my life.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Your love story started with traveling, a little bit of distance between you and Roger. And I'm kind of feeling that you kind of miss those late night phone calls from the early days of doing so much, living over 2,500 miles apart and seeing each other part-time. I feel like you had to just do that one more time.
We did. I mean, how did you know? We did. We felt like, it was only a year and a half of our long distance relationship. And so in 2019, there was an interesting call. My husband, Roger, is, in addition to being a pizza place owner, Roger is a full-time data scientist or data analyst at AT&T. And in 2019, they put something out there for their Atlanta-based employees that they were going to be moving a couple of hundred folks to LA. And at first, Roger and I were like, there's no way. Of course we wouldn't do this. And then a few days later, we were like, that could be fun. It could be fun to be long distance again. I mean, this is some distance from Atlanta to LA. And by the summer, we accepted the offer. And then by the summer of 2019, we had our place in LA. And although it didn't last long, it was a great adventure, Carrie, I have to say, because there's just something kind of romantic, maybe old movie-like about being bi-coastal. And we also said, both of our parents were military. We both had military dads. So we don't know if that plays a part into that need to be a little bit of adventure, that need to have that little something. And it was interesting, me being here some and him being in LA and me flying back and forth. It was something.
Wasn't that a challenge for you coming out of your comfort zone?
Yes, it was. Because you know what this means now. This meant that the times it was my turn to travel to LA, which was most often, I had to drive myself to the airport, Carrie. There, I said it. Except for one other time, I don't think I've ever driven myself to the airport. I mean, I live 42 miles away from the world's busiest airport, and it was always Roger driving us or Roger dropping me off. And it's funny how that's such a small thing, right? Riding to the airport. But it was just something that I had never done. And it's cutthroat here in Atlanta. I'm 42 miles.
Been to that airport and drove 42 minutes to get to a destination. Yes.
Exactly. So that was a little bit of a whole new world for me, not to mention just the week or so that we'd be apart. Sometimes there was, I think the longest period might have been 2.5 weeks of being home alone, so to speak. But then that drive to the airport was something that I didn't think about until it was time for me to do it. And it's not that big of a deal, but that first time it kind of is, because it was that something new, that something different. I hadn't done it yet. So it was really one of those small little stepping stones along the way, for sure.
I think it's beautiful how your story has woven the strength that you have, but that you didn't always realize you have. That's the testament to resiliency.
I think you're right. I think there's something to be said in that, Carrie, because most of my dream come true moments or my defining moments have really involved me taking a big step with other people. And being bi-coastal, for the short time that we did it, it required me taking a little bit of that big step on my own. And that proved to me that, I love to be with other people. That's when I'm my best and my boldest. However, I can be bold on my own when I need to. And that was a big lesson for me, that I could kind of manage things here at the house by myself, and I could get myself to the airport. And those are small things that, but in the beginning, they're not. And I don't take those moments for granted, because they just sort of build, and they build that resiliency. They build that boldness in you. So yeah.
And I think we see that in you as you've embarked onto the empowered living. And we're winding down our time together. I could talk to you forever, but I think you know what's coming. We all want to know your answer to this question. How do you define an empowered life?
Well, I think my first part of that answer would be bold. And I had a great conversation with one of the other empowered women, Barbara Gustafson, who did the show over the summer. And that's one of her favorite words too. And we talked about what is bold post-COVID. And in this world, even pre-COVID, bold is any little step that we can make, any little step to get us to the next place. And so I really believe that an empowered life is a life of boldness, however, bold on your own terms. So the first couple of times I drove to Hartsville Jackson alone, that was bold for me. I mean, I'm out here in 6 lanes of traffic, Harry. Come on. And if you're not used to doing that, that's bold. And it's those little steps. So I would say empowered living is living boldly, which is how I got the show. I put it out there the day of the Future Cast broadcast. I tell the story on the other show with Paul,
Yeah.
Holly, and Andy, but I put that out there that, hey, I want to be the Oprah of empowered living, thinking nobody would see that comment. It was kind of drowning in a sea of 4,000 other comments. And Paul saw that comment. And that led to one thing to another. And it was that bold, may not have been bold for other people. It was bold for me to put that out there. I didn't think anybody would see it, but it was bold. And that has really come back in a powerful way in my life. So definitely an empowered life is living bold. And the second part of that answer is connected. I think an empowered life is a connected life. And I think the first person that you have to connect to is yourself. Embracing your strength, embracing your weaknesses, and then connecting to other people. That's the heart and soul of life, right, Carrie? And I think that at this point in my life, we've reflected a little bit on, what was it, Regina, the child, the teenager, the woman? Woo, that's like a mini series, right, Carrie? So I think that in this first part of the mini series, connection and boldness have led me to this wonderful, wonderful place in this very special community. And let me just say, it is an honor. It is not just my passion in life, my purpose to do these things. It is an honor. It is an honor to host this show every single week and bring people like Carrie and so many other wonderful women. And I feel like we're just getting started. So an empowered life is living connected and living boldly.
Wow, Regina, I want to thank you. I think that was the best answer we've had. But also, I am honored that you let me do this interview for you and that you stepped into the hot seat and get a feel for what we all go through. So thank you for your time and great insight of what you do and who you are and how it's impacted your life. And now you impact ours.
Oh, Carrie, it's a pleasure to have you. You were bold because you asked me, maybe the only guest that ever asked me. So you're living boldly too. And I can't wait to see what's next for you. Thank you, everyone that joined Carrie and I today. We are very happy to have had this moment together. And thank you for being here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.